With the Republican primary 2 weeks away, what is the path to victory for the four gubernatorial candidates? Is Gov. Ivey unbeatable, certain to get more than 50% of the vote on June 5 to avoid a runoff? Can one of her three challengers, Huntsville Mayor Tommy Battle, Birmingham evangelist Scott Dawson or mobile state Senator Bill Hightower, make a push to force a runoff on July 24? In recent days, the four candidates have talked about their path to victory or, in Ivey's case, why she deserves a full term in office after replacing Robert Bentley in April 2017. Their responses and comments have ranged from "there will definitely be a runoff" to "no one else should be considered except the person currently in office." Here's a look at the four GOP candidates with 14 days until voters go to the poll. Tommy Battle. He's raised the second most money in the campaign to Ivey and has been in the race for almost 13 months. Political observers generally put Battle as Ivey's top competition, but the dearth of public polling has made it difficult to establish a pecking order among the challengers. "I think we're going to be the second-place person to Ivey in the primary," Battle said. "I think we'll be in the runoff. And if we get in the runoff, we'll win." Battle made a similar claim in a blog on his campaign website last week, pointing to what he said were Ivey's falling poll numbers. Battle noted that Ivey had spent about $1 million in advertising. Falling numbers while you're spending money on advertising and talking about mountain oysters is not good, Battle's blog said. The dynamic of the race will change if he matches up against Ivey in a runoff, Battle said. "When you get into a runoff, all of a sudden it's one-on-one," Battle said. It's one person versus the other person. You can compare records at that point. It's not one person out of four. We can start comparing records. Who has brought 24,000 jobs to our area? Who has brought $4 billion worth of investment in the area? Who has taken on education and made education better? Who has built a road actually? Built a road and done infrastructure? And who has faced the same challenges this state has faced, and if it's Battle versus Ivey in a runoff, expect the debate issue to emerge again. "Once you get into a runoff, it's very hard for them not to debate you," he said. "It's very hard for them to hide from the debates." Scott Dawson. He's the only challenger not willing to concede that, yes, there will be a runoff and that, yes, Ivey will be in it. "I'm not sure if there's going to be a runoff. I'm not sure who's going to be in the runoff," Dawson said. "I just know I'm running as hard as I can to get to June 5 at 50+1. I don't know. This time last week, I didn't know. This time next week, who knows? It's Alabama politics." Dawson has raised the least amount of money in the race but also perhaps the most high-profile endorsements, from former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee to syndicated radio hosts Rick. He likely raised his profile among voters last week when he made a statewide tour spotlighting grants given by the Alabama Department of Economic Development and Community Affairs to a now-defunct LGBTQ nonprofit organization in Huntsville. "For me, I think it goes through the churches," Dawson said of his path to victory. "I think it goes through the conferences I've done, the friends that have already endorsed me and stood beside me. With that, we'll just have to see if the people show up to vote. If the people vote, it could be a shocker on June 5. And that's just up to the people of Alabama." Bill Hightower. Though he has served in the state Senate since 2013, Hightower has described himself as working outside the Montgomery political bubble and more as a businessman than a politician. Like Battle, he expects Ivey to be in the runoff. But predictions in Alabama politics can be risky business, Hightower said. He pointed to U.S. Rep. Gary Palmer, who got only 20% of the vote in the 2014 GOP primary, but that was good enough to force a runoff with Paul DeMarco, who got 33% of the vote. Then Palmer beat DeMarco by 28 percentage points in the runoff. Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin, nobody knew who he was, Hightower said. He got out and knocked on doors and he beat the incumbent last year. Nobody predicted Trump would win at this point before the election. They were new faces and they had new ideas. That to me is what's grabbing people's attention. Anybody that tries to predict the outcome of the primary, they're on their self-pride because you can't do it. I do believe the governor is going to have a runoff. Numbers, she's fallen quite a bit over the past few months. Both Battle and Hightower cited support for Ivey in the 70th percentile last year to a poll released last month by Alabama Daily News, leverage public strategies that had Ivey at 47%. All I need to do is do what I did when I won the Senate, and that is get out and tell my message, talk to the right people, be clear how I convey it and say what I'm going to do and let Alabama decide, Hightower said. Ivey, her campaign has largely been quiet when it comes to public appearances, but she has flooded markets with TV ads. In speeches around the state, Ivey has touted Alabama's low unemployment and the number of jobs created since she replaced Bentley 13 months ago. The conclusion of a brief campaign speech last week to the Republican Men's Club in Huntsville, though, Ivey described herself as Alabama's head coach, and if the coach is winning, you don't need a new one. Let me put this upcoming election in a perspective we can all identify with, she said. The state of Alabama is looking for a head coach. I'm the only person applying for this position who has had experience coaching at this level. The state of Alabama has won every single game while I've been the head coach, economic development, unemployment, budgets, you name it. If I hadn't been doing a good job, I wouldn't blame you for considering somebody else. But since I've been the head coach, we've made great strides and improvements in our state and we're on the path for prosperity. So I ask you this, what search committee would ever consider someone for head coach who has never coached a single game at this level?